concerned that they won't. And if they reject this for the 15th time, they will be ensuring that this shutdown continues past the November 1st deadline. And that is a fateful deadline for a number of reasons. Starting on Saturday, let me give you a list of things that this means for the American people. It means that tens of millions of American families will struggle to keep food on the table because the SNAP program benefits will run dry. It means that WIC assistance, that's women, infants, and children, the nutrition programs, will be at risk of running dry. It means that Head Start centers, which serve 60,000 children nationwide, will be at risk of closure. Millions of federal workers, and we've listed them here every day. You're talking about air traffic controllers and TSA agents and park rangers and Border Patrol agents, law enforcement around the country. The stewards of our nuclear arsenal will miss their paychecks. Thousands of flights, by result, will be canceled or delayed, while our borders and national security will be directly jeopardized at a very dangerous moment in world history. And our country will lose tens of billions in gross domestic product. With each passing day, the pain gets more real, and the Democrats are guaranteeing when they vote to reject our clean funding resolution. We expect they will do that again today for the 15th time. They are showing no shame whatsoever in their actions. Now, just as we clearly know what is happening, which we've recounted here every morning, the American people can never forget. We also clearly know why it's happening. And I brought a few friends. We brought some colleagues here from the state of New York and New York City to share with you about some of what's going on here. Back in March, this is very clear what happened. Let me summarize very briefly as I can. Back in March, Chuck Schumer voted for the clean CR, the same measure that's on the floor now. He did the right thing, and he went on the floor of the Senate, and he gave an impassioned speech of why we could never inflict all this pain on the American people. He meant it from his heart, and he was consistent in what he had done over his 44 years in Congress, always voting to fund the government. But when he did the right thing in March, he received an onslaught of criticism from the far left base and the Democrat Party. He almost lost his job. Many of you wrote about it. He was in jeopardy of not winning his next re-election. That's how serious it was. So Chuck Schumer got a bunch of consultants and staff in a back room, and they concocted a plan, a political stunt. And they determined right then that the next time there was a funding measure, no matter how meritorious and no matter how much it would cause pain to the American people, that he would vote against it. He would show a fight to President Trump so he could save his political skin. It's exactly what happened. He did this so he could prove to his base that he's showing a fight. And as a result of this charade, he has brought the Democrats to their lowest point in decades. Literally, the Democratic Party has its lowest approval rating. Democrats in Congress have their lowest approval rating ever in the history of polling. The labor unions, working class Americans, independents are fleeing his party. And they are coming to the party of common sense because they see us here trying to solve these problems. They see us here voting over and over and over to fund the government and give them their paychecks. And they see the Democrats dug in against it. And now Chuck Schumer is desperately trying to cling to power. Unfortunately, when you make decisions out of fear and political desperation, you have already lost control. And the new power center in the Democrat Party is one that should frighten every common-sense American. The radical socialist wing is rising. It is led by people like AOC and Bernie Sanders. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer know this. They're smart politicians in that way. They can feel the political winds, and they know that they have to continue to act belligerently in order to gain the favor of the far left. It's their own political survival that they had put in front of the needs of the entire country. Let me say that again. The Democrat leaders in the Senate and the House have put their own political survival in front of the needs of the American people. Exhibit A is Zoran Mamdani. New York City, America's largest city, the cradle of capitalism that has always been, is facing a real crisis right now. They've got a 34-year-old, unproven, untested socialist who looks to be the next mayor. He may well be elected. Mamdani winning New York City would be the biggest win for the Marxists, the socialists, in the history of this country. We have, to this point, in nearly 250 years, been able to hold off those kinds of ideas. We've been able to cling to the foundational principles of America, the ideas of individual freedom and limited government and the rule of law and peace through strength and fiscal responsibility and free markets and human dignity. All those things are in jeopardy when the Marxists take over. And it's the clearest sign yet that the Democrats' radical Marxist wing is winning the battle for control of their party. Look at where the energy is. This should be alarming to everyone around the country. Mamdani has, of course, called to defund the police, to abolish all prisons, to legalize prostitution. He lambasted the New York PD, New York Police Department as a racist system. And you might have seen, if you in the media are covering this, but there was a new video uncovered from 2023, just 2 years ago, and he said, quote, "We have to be clear, when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF. Look, it's a unique talent to merge one's loathing for American law enforcement with their loathing for the Jewish people. But this guy's, he's managed to do it. New York is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not isolated to America's largest city. It's other cities as well. Look at Seattle, where the leading candidate for mayor is an open socialist. Look at Minneapolis, where the sitting socialist mayor is facing a challenge from his left flank. And look here in Congress, where we have our own wing of Marxist acolytes serving here. Amazingly, the media is criticizing Republicans for fixating on Mamdani. I read some of that yesterday. This socialist uprising is something that we have a responsibility to call out and sound the alarms. That's what elected representatives of the people are supposed to do, and we take that responsibility seriously. And obviously, Mamdani is a big issue here in the halls of Congress. Why? Because the second highest ranked Democrat in the country, Leader Jeffries, endorsed him. They're making Mamdani a mainstream Democrat now, and this party has left the people. Of course, the press wants us to ignore Mamdani. Here it's an embarrassment because most of the press is on the side of the Democrats. They don't want us to talk about that, but we have to. Because by endorsing Mamdani, Hakeem Jeffries has endorsed and co-owned his positions, his past statements, his Marxist playbook, and everything else that that guy espouses. And so too does every single House Democrat who will be inviting their leader, Jeffries, to their campaigns and to their districts next year. Every single one of them at every campaign stop should be asked, what do you think about Mamdani? What do you think about his positions? While House Democrats court Marxists in New York, Senate Democrats have chosen to shut down the government over a totally clean, nonpartisan CR. It's the first time in history, in the history of this country, that any party has done that, has chosen, had the audacity to shut the government down over a totally clean, nonpartisan funding measure. They're bowing to the demands of their far-left base, and no one can deny that. The facts are very clear. The American people are intelligent. They understand what's happening here. We pray that the Democrats, at least a handful of centrists, if there are any moderates left in the Democrat Party in the Senate, we pray that they will come to their senses and they will do the right thing by the American people, that they will stop all the pain and that they will reopen the government. As I mentioned on Saturday, things are going to become very dire. There is one way out of this, the easy way, the obvious way, and that is for the Democrats to do their job and vote for the CR. Now, I mentioned we brought some of our good friends and colleagues here from New York to talk about the mess that the Democrats have created in the Empire State. Now, why are we focusing on New York? Because, again, it's a bellwether for the rest of the nation. If you're watching at home, you need to understand the dynamics of what's happening in New York, because you have to ensure that it doesn't happen in your city, in your town, in your state. And these folks are watching this, and they're fighting it. Our Republicans in New York are trying to hold the line. They're trying to defend what is great about this extraordinary and exceptional nation that we have. But they have a lot of headwinds, and they're here to share how this reckless shutdown is impacting everyday New Yorkers. And I'm delighted to bring up to the podium, before we get our leadership reports here, one of my dear friends and colleagues and classmates back from the 115th Congress when we came in as freshmen together, Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, who is from the 22nd District of New York. She does an extraordinary job here for her state and for the country. Claudia, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker and my colleagues. I actually hail from the 24th District, a little
24th.
bit of, we've had some redistricting in upstate New York a couple of times. But I just want to say good morning and thank you again to my colleagues for being here. This is really important. And I wish I could say that I am surprised by what we're witnessing, but this is exactly what happens when the Democratic Party surrenders to its most radical fringe. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries lack the political courage to stand up to the Marxist, anti-Semitic, anti-law enforcement base led by Mamdani now, AOC, and Bernie Sanders. Schumer and Jeffries are both weak leaders from New York, and specifically New York City, where they have never had to face serious political opposition and have enjoyed nothing but glowing praise from their friends in the media. They are ill-suited to lead the Democratic Party at the national level, which is on dramatic display with each passing day of this tragic shutdown. They have traded true leadership for appeasement, responsibility for disorder, and principle for political survival. This shutdown is their choice. They've surrendered to radicals funded by dark money groups pushing anti-police, anti-Israel, anti-American garbage. Now the country is paying the price. I served with Hakeem Jeffries in the New York State Legislature. He sat right next to me. I've seen this playbook before, as have my colleagues in New York who also served in the legislature. It is the same corrupt Albany routine. Reward insiders, punish taxpayers, and blame everybody else. Today, it is something far worse. A movement run by socialist, Marxist activists. I don't like to call them socialists, they're really Marxist. And extremist networks, and they have hijacked the Democratic Party. And as the Speaker pointed out, just look at Zohran Mamdani, a member of the State Assembly, by the way. He actually defeated a fairly liberal member of the Assembly, who is in a narrow election, but there he is in the State Assembly. He is the face of the new far-left coalition, and make no mistake about it, the new leader of the New York Democratic Party. His campaign is not grassroots. It's bankrolled by Soros money, radical clerics, and communists working together to push a Marxist agenda in America's largest city. Schumer and Jeffries will not stand up to this movement. We've seen this because, as the Speaker pointed out, they're terrified of it. They have built their political survival on appeasing the far left, and now our entire country is being held hostage by it. They cannot open the government without angering the radicals who radically run their party. The Democratic Party is now controlled, as I said, by the Marxist activists, dark money donors. This is not a grassroots effort. And anti-American ideology is dominating this. And they would rather destroy the system than to lose power. And unfortunately, Leader Jeffries and Leader Schumer are just succumbing to this. New Yorkers are already paying the price, and we have been paying the price. From Albany's Medicaid for Illegal scheme to Mamdani's socialist city agenda, working families are being crushed under taxes, mandates, and ideology. And if we don't stand up, the damage will not end at the Hudson. It will reach every corner of upstate New York and across this country. We are here to fight for the men and women who build, farm, serve, and raise families across New York and our nation. They are the backbone of this nation, and they deserve a government that works for them, not the political insiders who have created this mess. So my message to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries is simple. Stop playing games. Stop bowing to this mob and reopen our government. Pay our troops, fund essential services, and start putting American families, and especially in my case and my colleagues here, New York families first. And my message to New Yorkers is this: stand up, speak out, reject this radicalism that has taken over not just our city, but will take over our state. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the moment.
Well, thank you, Claudia, and my other colleagues from New York for coming. And it's so sad to see what's happened to that great state of New York. But if you go back to November, when President Trump won an overwhelming victory to come back as president, defeating Kamala Harris, winning every one of the 7 swing states. In those months after, what you saw was this internal conflict within the Democrat Party. Who is the head of the Democrat Party? You heard it over and over. Some people are trying to raise their hand. A very, very weak bench of failed leaders, primarily, governors from failed states, wanting to jump ahead of everybody else and claim the title. And yet, as the Democrat Party stayed that rudderless ship for months and months, because of this perfect storm, that the 2 top Democrat leaders in the House and Senate both hail from the state of New York. With the emergence now of Zoran Mandami, you have seen Zoran Mandami quickly become the new head of the Democrat Party nationally. Because Chuck Schumer, who is the head Democrat in the Senate, and Hakeem Jeffries, who's the head Democrat in the House, both hailing from New York, are scared to death of that far-left extremist, radical, socialist, Marxist movement in their own party, starting in New York. And because Mandami has taken off there, it is affecting real people everywhere in America. Devastating consequences. We've talked about it over and over. You know, the last few weeks, we talked about the pain, the suffering that Democrats were causing to especially federal workers, our troops, air traffic controllers, every other federal worker who wasn't getting paid. Some, President Trump found ways to get paid. Others, there weren't ways to do the same thing, but the president worked overtime. Look at what the president did working overtime, at least doing his job, in China this morning. A historic trade deal with China announced, where they resolved some issues on tariffs. Our soybean farmers are going to be able to sell more of their products into China. Critical minerals that we'll be able to get. All of those things President Trump continues to do while Democrats want to try to spew chaos around the country. But the harm to families, as we've been talking about, while real, is unfortunately going to get worse. And we've been telegraphing this for weeks, pleading with our Democrat colleagues in the Senate. Just five Democrats need to get the courage to end the shutdown. And only they can do it. They know that. And what are those consequences? We've been talking for weeks. Coming this weekend, Saturday, 42 million SNAP beneficiaries will lose those benefits. Those cards are going to go to zero. When they go to the grocery store to try to put food on the table, there will be no money in those accounts. And what is Chuck Schumer going to tell those families? It's no longer hypothetical. It's no longer theoretical. It's real suffering and pain, and they know that. We've given you the quotes over and over these last few weeks. They admit they are causing suffering. They're using the American people for leverage, and they just don't care. But I think they're going to start hearing more and more from people. There's some people we've been hearing from. The National Veteran Advocate, his retired U.S. Army Sergeant Eric Donahoe, said this, quote, "The decision to vote against advancing the CR is now causing financial harm to families who serve this country." He went on to say, quote, "When I spoke with Democratic staffers that I know they called this shutdown a political opportunity. They think the more Americans hurt, the more power they gain. They even bragged about it," Donahoe said. Quote, "This isn't a headline to us. It's rent, it's groceries, it's mental health, it's stability." And of course, you've heard just a few days ago, we had the National Air Traffic Controllers Association and the American Federation of Government Employees demanding that Democrats pass the clean CR. More and more, you're seeing this growing chorus of people from all corners, including Democrat corners, telling their own party leaders, stop this madness, end the madness, and vote to open the government. But again, this weekend, it gets even more painful, more suffering that they will impose if they keep this madness up. And so I'm going to try to find 5 Democrat senators. It's all we need is 5. So let's start with John Ossoff in Georgia. Starting this weekend, over 1.3 million enrollees in SNAP in his home state of Georgia lose their benefits. 1.3 million, Senator. What are you going to tell those families if you vote no today? If you vote to take their food away this weekend? That's what your vote means today. 109,000 federal workers in his state of Georgia. Of course, the largest airport in America is in his home state of Georgia, and they're already experiencing flight delays in Atlanta. 231,000 women, infant, and children will lose their benefits in Senator Ossoff's home state of Georgia if he votes no today. Think about them when you're casting that vote. Senator Warner in Virginia, 825,000 SNAP enrollees in his home state of Virginia. 189,000 federal workers. Don't come up here and give some speech lamenting about the hardships those people are facing when you're the one voting to impose those hardships. You can stop that today by voting yes. 107,000 women, infant, and children will lose their benefits in Virginia if Senator Warner votes no. Tina Smith in Minnesota, 452,000 enrollees in the SNAP program, 33,000 federal workers, and 101,000 women, infant, and children in Minnesota will lose their benefits if Tina Smith votes no today. Gary Peters in Michigan, over 1.4 million enrollees in SNAP. No food stamp benefits this weekend to 1.4 million Michiganders. 56,000 federal workers, 189,000 women, infant, and children will go without food this weekend in Michigan if Senator Peters votes no. Senator Sheehan in New Hampshire, 76,000 enrollees in SNAP, 9,000 federal workers, and 12,000 women, infant, and children will go hungry in New Hampshire if Senator Sheehan votes no. I could go on with more and more of these. All we need is 5. That's 5 right there. If they get the courage, they don't have to impose that pain on families. But the only way this suffering is prevented is if they come to their senses and vote yes. We all know the math. We all know what's needed. But it's not just math. It's millions and millions of families across this country that will truly suffer and go without food if they vote no today. It's a straightforward vote. We've all voted yes and passed it through the House over a month ago. End the madness and pass this bill. Our whip, Tom Emmer.
We are officially 30 days into the Democrats' needless government shutdown. 30 days that millions of federal workers have gone without a paycheck. 30 days that critical telehealth services and in-home hospital care programs have been put on pause for the vulnerable Americans who need it most. 30 days that our national security has been put at risk due to staffing shortages. Not to mention the SNAP benefits that you've heard our leader go through in detail that will be cut off for more than 40 million low-income Americans if the Democrats fail to reopen the government before Saturday. It's been 30 days of pure obstruction from Democrat lawmakers who care more about appeasing the radical Mamdani and Omar Fata wing of their party than reopening the government for the people they were elected to serve. Americans are hurting. Families are turning to food banks. Major airports are issuing ground stops. But the Democrats don't care. In fact, they've orchestrated this chaos by refusing to support our nonpartisan government funding bill 14 times now. And for what? So that they can kowtow to the people like Kami. And I will just say to my great friend and colleague, Claudia Tenney, socialists are now the moderates in my grandfather's Democrat Party. These are communists and Marxists. They are kowtowing to the people like Kami Mamdani ahead of the election. People are struggling in the meantime to put food on the table, and the Democrats are too busy playing politics to do anything about it. It's disgusting, and it needs to end. I say it every day when we do this. Remember, all we need is 5 Senate Democrats to come to their senses, break ranks with Chuck Schumer, support our clean CR, and reopen the government. It's past time for Democrats in Congress to get serious and do their jobs for the people they were elected to serve, not for the communist mayoral candidate in New York City. Our conference chair.
Thank you. Kami Mandami, that might stick. That might stick. Well, good. Yeah, the truth hurts, right?
Works.
Works, all right. Well, this Saturday, SNAP benefits run out for 42 million Americans. 42 million Americans, the SNAP benefits will run out. Let me say it one more time and let it sink in. 42 million families, including thousands in my home state of Michigan, could lose the ability to put food on the table for their families. Why? Because Democrats choose to use their pain and their hunger as leverage. Leverage for more wasteful spending, leverage to satisfy their radical base. And what are Republicans doing? Republicans did their job and are going to continue to do our job. We voted for a clean, responsible bill to keep the government open and fully fund SNAP. So let me be very clear. Republicans voted to continue funding for SNAP and continue to have families have the ability to feed their families. Democrats voted to take food off the table and voted to discontinue SNAP benefits. It is that simple. Democrats voted to shut it down, and they voted to deny food assistance to 42 million Americans. And they voted that way more than a dozen times. Just so y'all didn't get confused, they wanted to make sure that they rubbed it in your face more than a dozen times that they wanted to stop the SNAP benefits. Not just once, not just twice, they wanted to make doggone sure you knew they voted more than a dozen times to kill the SNAP benefits, to take food off your table. Just so you're clear. And let's remember, they did it, and make sure that we don't forget, and let's make sure we remind them who voted to keep food on the table and who voted to take food off the table. Because at some point in time, they're gonna reverse what they're talking about and do what they normally do, and that's try and blame us. But let's hold them accountable for once to the votes that they've taken. I can assure you I will. I met one of these recipients last weekend while I was volunteering at a food bank in St. Clair County. His name was Jim. Jim's wife is a teacher, and he's a retired auto worker. They rely on SNAP to help cover the cost of groceries. Jim waited in line for more than 3 hours because he knows he won't be getting his benefits. That's what he told me. But you know what he told me? I thought this was very insightful. He told me, thank you. He told me, thank you for all you're doing to keep the government open. He also told me to please talk to our senators and ask them, since they voted and they campaigned on being moderates and reaching across the aisle, to fulfill their campaign promises and stop using families like Jim as leverage and care about the people that they were elected to represent. I also spoke with a woman who recently lost her husband. She's now raising her grandkids and told me she's never needed help before, but now she's struggling to afford groceries. These are real people struggling, real people that Republicans are actually fighting for, and real people that I am fighting for. Jim is not leverage. Jim is a person with a family to feed. Open up the government and stop using Jim and his family as leverage to kowtow to your radical political base. Do what you know is right and what you have said is right, and open up the government. A farmer back home once told me, when you're not hungry, you have a lot of problems. When you're hungry, you have one. Right now, families on SNAP have a problem. And that problem should never, ever be used as political leverage. So Republicans, we're gonna keep on working and we're gonna keep on fighting. And you know what? We will keep showing up. And while we keep demanding that Democrats stop using suffering Americans as pawns in their political games, I implore my 2 senators, do what you said you were gonna do. Do what you said that you are. You've reached across the aisle. You're moderates, you care about people. Well, show that in your actions and vote for a clean CR for families like Jim who you represent.